The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a great episode for us today. A great guest coming to us, all the way given to us from legendary football coach Hal Mumme. We're going to get into all of that with him. Lance Funderburk joins the show. Lance, thanks for joining.
Hey, Mike. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, not a problem. So, first and foremost, for some of the newer listeners out there that maybe don't know about you and what you've done in the past, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I played at Valdosta State University for Coach Hal Mumme, as you mentioned, and the late Coach Mike Leach, and had a great experience there. I played there from 1992 to 1996. Under Coach Mumme, I was the first recruit he signed at Valdosta State University, and I played in his last game as coach there at Valdosta State University. So had a great career, a lot of fun. I grew up in a little small town in South Georgia and played in a wing T offense, and we ran the football a lot. And they showed up in my living room, and back then it was VHS. They popped in a VHS tape, and I saw the offense that they were bringing from Iowa Wesleyan, and they were throwing the ball over the yard, spreading it out. And I thought, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that. Being a quarterback, being able to be a part of that offense was pretty unique. So spent 4 years there playing in that program, 5 years playing in that program, and then had the opportunity to play after that. I signed a free agent contract with the Jaguars in 1997. Went through training camp, was released by them, unfortunately. Spent the next year playing in the Canadian Football League for the Montreal Alouettes. And then I did a stint in the Arena Football League for about 4 years and had a lot of fun. That was when Kurt Warner was coming out on the scene. He had just come out of the Arena League, went to the NFL, won the MVP. So I thought, well, maybe I should take a look at this league. So played in the Arena Football League for 4 years. And then 6 years in, you're chasing the dream, trying to get back to an NFL camp. And at that point, it was, I'm 6 years in. I was having fun. But I was married, had a kid. I thought, it's probably time to go get a real job. But it was a great experience. Chased it for 6 years and had a lot of fun.
I can relate to that, I guess, a little bit. Being a comedian, you're on the road a lot, kind of like a professional athlete, going to different games, different cities, preparing for that and everything like that. But, when you got a family back home, it's tough to keep doing that. But, luckily, yeah. I have a wonderful wife and son who supports the dream, and we're going to keep rolling with that too as well. So, I definitely get that part of it. So, I know you mentioned, popping in the VHS tape and showing, the little bit of what the offense and the air raid that Hal Mumme was going to do. So, what else was like the recruiting process like other than that, coming out of high school, moving into college? So what was kind of like your recruiting process?
Yeah, great question. It's interesting. So I have two boys. I have four kids. I have two daughters and two sons. I've gone through the recruiting process with both of my boys. One signed to play football at Sanford as a freshman last year, and then the other one's a junior in high school, and he's going through the recruiting process now. And so what I will say is it is nothing like it was back then, right? With Twitter and social media, the access that these coaches have to these players through huddle and things like that, it's pretty incredible. So back then, I was just telling my son last week, I was like, we had to literally take VHS tapes and mail them to colleges. And that was our communication. And you'd get handwritten letters, you get letters in the mail, you get the occasional phone call, but it was much harder to access, right? The coaches and then to access you back in the early 90s. So it looked completely different. I had quite a few ACC schools and SEC schools that recruited me, some FCS schools or 1AA back then. But unfortunately, we weren't very good in high school. We won 11 games in 4 years. And so there wasn't a huge market for, 4'6", 40 quarterbacks that had an average arm that won 11 games in 4 years. So, my options ended up being I had some offers, East Tennessee State, Presbyterian College, Valdosta State. I had a walk-on opportunity at University of Florida, but I'm a Bulldog, and so I would never imagine going to play for the Florida Gators. It was, as I look back now, it was my dream to play in the SEC. Again, I grew up a Bulldog, wanted to play between the hedges in Sanford State, but that didn't work out. I'm a person of faith, and I look back now and I just see how God had a hand in kind of every single step I took, and ended up going to Valdosta State, having a great career, met my wife, and the rest is history, right? So you look back at the recruiting process and how it took form. Was I disappointed? Probably at times. I think every kid dreams of playing Division I football or Power 5 football, but it wasn't in the cards. But man, I could have never imagined the experience I would have playing for those guys and what it set me up for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I know when I went through a recruiting process, albeit it was for swimming, not football. I did play football in high school, but swimming was always my better sport. And, I had a lot of D1 schools looking at me and what that recruiting process was like in the early 2000s, and it was still kind of, you still kind of got the letters, you still kind of got the phone calls, it was texts too as well, but it was a lot different. And, I had dream school, West Virginia, Mountaineer through and through, and ended up getting hurt playing football my senior year, and it just so happened to be a shoulder injury. So they're not going to take, a chance on a swimmer with a bum shoulder. That's kind of our bread and butter. But, everybody but a little D3 school in West Virginia dropped their scholarship. And, you kind of have those dreams of going to the D1 schools, especially your dream school. I talked all through high school. I'm going to be wearing blue and gold. It's going to be blue and gold. I'm a Mountaineer. I live in the middle of Ohio State country right now, and I hate it. But, it's to the point where, it bums you out. I can see what you're saying. And, not wanting to go and play for Florida State, playing for or Florida and playing for a rival, I would never do. If Marshall would have kept us, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't go to Marshall. I can't do it. So I get it. And you take the path that, is laid for you. And worked out, had a chance at the, the 2012 Olympics, and fate had it again, re-injured the same shoulder in the middle of a race, but it wasn't in the cards, and I'm wife, kids now too as well, myself, and a happy 11-year veteran of doing stand-up comedy. So
it all tends to work out, right?
Yeah, it all works out in the end. But you must have some memorable moments playing for, Coach Mumme, as a quarterback and everything like that with that air raid offense. So I believe you were selected in the 72nd annual East-West Shrine Game. So can you take us through a little bit of that?
Yeah. So playing in that offense, I was a backup. My freshman year, I worked my way into a backup role. Played as a freshman and sophomore. The guy who was ahead of me is Chris Hatcher. He's actually now the head coach at Samford University. And so Hal came to me and just said, hey, let's redshirt you your junior year to give you another year between you and Chris. And so I said, that sounds like a great plan. So was a backup my first 2 years, redshirted my junior year, ran scout team, and had a lot of fun beating up on our first team offense, our first team defense. And then that gave me 2 years as a starter. And it was a great decision, great foresight by Coach Mumme to think through, like, how do we get the most out of Lance and his talent? And it was to give me another year. And so great experience. We averaged throwing the ball probably 45 times a game, which at that time was kind of unheard of. We used the passing game as an extension of the running game. We did a lot with quick screens and quick game. And, we wanted to make, Coach Mumme used to talk about making them defend the entire field. And, we did. We spread it out, and we also every year had a 1,000-yard rusher. So I think a lot of people don't understand that in a high-profile air raid attack, that the rushing game still is a critical part of what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. And so what would happen is we'd start spreading people out, and they'd get people out of the box, and then we'd hit them with runs, and then they'd start creeping back in the box. We'd get back outside with the pass. So very, very intuitive. Coach Mumme was he was one of the best offensive minds I've ever been around. Like I say, I had the privilege of playing after college for several years, and just the things that he would think through would be, let's make it simple. We didn't have a big playbook. Quite frankly, we didn't even have a playbook. And I was shocked when I got to campus and I asked for a playbook. He's like, yeah, we don't have it. We got 10 plays. I'm like, 10 plays? This is college football. I would think you'd have a couple hundred. He said, nope, we had 10 plays, and then we're going to master these concepts. And that's what we did. We repped it, and we repped it, and we repped it. Now we had variations off of those 10 plays, but learned a ton from him. I, again, knew a little bit about playing quarterback. When I got there, I understood, how to read defenses and what are pre-snap keys. And by my senior year, he literally would give me a formation and would allow me to call part of the game. And that made it incredibly fun, right? As we would prep during the week, doing film study, and he'd say, hey, here's what we're going to see, and here's the 2 or 3 things we want to think about. And so we developed that relationship and that trust where we get into the flow of the game, and I could check out of any play at any time, and he would never question it. Now, if I threw an interception, he'd get in my ear, and he'd let me know that was a really dumb check or a dumb play. But, he empowered me as a quarterback, which I think that's why his quarterbacks had a lot of success, is because we were the coach on the field, and we could see what was happening real time. And so he trusted us, and he empowered us to lead in that way. So it was a ton of fun. It wasn't always easy. Coach Mumme was very demanding. He was a demanding coach, and we laugh now. I've got a lot of funny stories that I won't share on this podcast. They're probably aren't appropriate, but the way he used to motivate us, and you're laughing. You're about to say something there.
We're not afraid of language or anything like that on this. You're on the ranting podcast, so not afraid of 4 little words.
I will tell one story. It was a homecoming game my junior year. It was a team we should be beating, and they were hanging around, much closer game than it should have been. It was right before halftime, and production had broken down. I had scrambled out of the pocket, and I was not known for running. If I was running, there was only 2 things that were going to happen. They were both pretty bad, right? You didn't want me running. I was a pocket passer. It was 6'5", 225, and I loved to stay between the tackles. But I had broken out of the pocket, and we were on about the 10-yard line, and I saw my guy flash open in the back of the end zone, and I threw it. I didn't see a linebacker had undercut, and he goes up high to catch the ball, and he should have intercepted it. He tips it, and it bounces back to my guy, and we score, right? So we got lucky. And I come running off the field, and he said, what the F are you thinking? And I was like, well, Coach, this is like, well, I don't care. He's like, if you ever do that again, you wish you were never born. I was like, all right. So I went on to the sideline, but he was a fun coach. He was emotional. He demanded excellence, and he didn't mind getting in your ear too.
No, you don't see those coaches too often anymore. Those, hard-nosed, in-your-face kind of coaches. And I think that's what sports is missing, nowadays, especially in football. I've watched a lot of it. I love the sport. I've studied it. And, obviously I played 4 years in high school and everything like that. Got to learn a lot of other teams' offenses. I was the habitual backup. And always, I didn't play quarterback, but I was always the scout team quarterback, and I don't know why.
You got some experience then.
So I got some experience, under center and everything like that. But it's a great game. But I always had this coach, even as the scout team quarterback, they were getting on me for messing up either the other team's cadence or messing up a play that they were running to get our number ones ready. And I remember that growing up, and I just thought that was normal. And I see it now, and it's like I don't. This isn't coaching to me. You know what I mean? Do you see that in the game at all? Watching it a little bit, having the experience of playing.
Yeah, I would concur. Now, I'm not in the locker room anymore. Obviously, I do miss that. People ask me all the time, what do you miss the most about playing? I think it's the camaraderie. Just certainly, I miss X's and O's and the bright lights on Saturdays or Sundays, but I miss the camaraderie. But yeah, I do think that there is some of that that's gone from the game. Like I said, Hal was a great coach, but he demanded excellence, and you had a proper respect for that.
Yeah,
you got on the field. You knew it was time to go to work, and it was about business. And he was very detailed in the way our practices were, and and if you screwed up, he didn't mind letting you know. And but he also loved on you too, right? He would affirm you and praise you when you did well, but there was no parsing any words. And I think there, today there's some of that I'm missing in the game. I do. Again, I'm not practices and in the locker rooms, but I feel like in general, culturally, we may have gotten a little softer.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I would agree. Because, you've spent time in various pro leagues and like that. Like you said earlier, you played for the Jacksonville Jaguars under the legendary coach, Tom Coughlin. So what was that like and through the pro journey a little bit, with Coughlin and then, the CFL and the AFL and everything like that?
Yeah, it was a different world. Now Coach Mumme, in my experience playing for him, prepared me because Coughlin was a very similar coach, and Coughlin was older, very, I would say, militaristic approach, right? It was if you're 5 minutes early, you're late type deal, and he rode us as rookies so very hard. He was relentless on the rookies, and that was just you kind of knew that going in, and you talk to some of the veterans, and you'd ask, hey, does this ever get better? And they're like, yeah, if you make the team, and you're a contributor, it does get better. But, again, he was a guy that was, high attention to detail and had been very successful, Boston College. And then in the NFL, I think his second or third year, they won they went to the AFC Championship game, as an expansion team, which was, it's almost unheard of to have success that early. But I think a lot of it was because he ran such a tight program. But I'd be lying if I said I loved it. There were days where I'm like, man, this sucks. Being a rookie sucks. And Coughlin's on you. One day I was practicing. I was there when Mark Brunell was there. Everybody probably remembers that name, an all-pro quarterback for years in the league. And another guy named Rob Johnson was the backup. Yeah. He played in the league for the Bills and the Redskins after he left Jacksonville. And so I was competing for the third spot. And we were at practice one day, and Natron Means was the running back, and he had just run a little flare route. And he was wide open, and I missed him. Just kind of put it out on the edge of his fingertips, and wasn't a great ball. And I get back to the huddle, and Tom Coughlin says, Funderburk, get over here. And he said, whoa, you see all those reporters over there? I'm like, yeah, coach. He's like, every single day they're asking me, how's Funderburk doing? How's Funderburk? Funderburk this, Funderburk that. He's like, what do you want me to tell him? I'm like, coach, I guess tell him the truth. He said, you want me to tell him you can't hit a bull in the ass with a bass fiddle? He was like, get your ass in the huddle. Stop making bad throws. Like, yes, sir. Yeah. So that was one of many Tom Coughlin stories. But I learned to, respect the NFL, that game. It's a job. There's
Right.
guys at the top of the game. Less than 1% of the people get that opportunity, and I earned a new respect for it. Going to work, and it's still a game, and you're having fun, but it's a job. It is absolutely a job.
Yeah, I mean, I had a buddy of mine. I'm still real close with. We still talk daily and everything like that. He, went to little old D3 Bethany College like me, and he was the running back for our team, and he was consistently an 1,000-yard rusher for the 4 years that he was there. And his freshman year, he took over 5 games into a 10-game season and still rushed for 1,000 yards. Like,
Wow.
He's a very good player and athlete. He even, tried to do the whole walk-on open tryouts for certain teams. The Ravens was one of them, and I believe it was the Bengals or Browns. I know it was an Ohio team. Can't remember which one. And they were like, I mean, you're good, but you don't have the size that they're looking for in a running back. And he's a pretty big boy, size-wise. I mean, he's probably 6 foot, maybe 250, but he's solid, and he's fast, can catch, can run, and to see how him, I, as the sports director at my college, got to announce all of his games, and seeing him run and what he could do, and it's like they think you're too small, you're not good enough for the practice squad, even they don't want that. I was like, man, how good do you gotta be to be in the NFL? It opens your eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, it really does. I don't talk about it a lot, but if somebody asked me, I'll share some stories and experiences. But somebody asked me within the last month, what was it like, from a level of athlete, and I described, I played at, Valdosta State's a Division II school. Now I'd say we were the Alabama Division II. We were really good, and played at a really high level. But when you lined up on a Saturday, there were a lot of good athletes, a couple of great athletes, right? And then you get to the NFL. There's, the level of talent is off the chart, right? There's not any good athletes. There's not any great athletes. They are world-class athletes. They are best of the best at every single position. And so for me, that jump, to your point with your friend, you go, yeah, he's the best on the field, right? Hands down. And I was prototypical 6'5", 225. I had a really good arm, put up great stats, threw for 4,200 yards my senior year and 38 or 9 touchdowns. So, it was all there physically. But when you get on that field in the NFL, it is a different game because every single person is elite at their position. Elite size, elite speed, elite mental toughness. And so, yeah, it was a huge jump. I mean, even from guys that play Power 5 football, it's still a big jump. Because if you think about it, the guys that are lining up in the SEC and ACC or Big Ten, Pac-12 every week, there's only 2 or 3 of those guys on every starting 11 that will make it in the NFL, right? So Just think about that. Even at that level, it's another step up.
Yeah, it's crazy to dive into it and think about it that way. But after your playing days were done, you were also inducted into the Valdosta State Hall of Fame. So what was that like?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was a great honor. When I got that call that I had been inducted, it was a surprise, but a great honor. And I was able to bring my kids back and my family, and it was a really neat event. Of course, I tell my kids how good I was, but they don't believe that, right? No. But it was a really special, unique experience, and to be a part of those early teams at Valdosta State University to help build a foundation and be a part of setting. We never won a national championship while I was there. And in the last 15 years, they've won 4. The last 20 years, they've won 4. So, to think that you were a part of kind of building some of that success and the building blocks of the program, to be recognized in that way, to be, inducted in the Hall of Fame is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's just got to be a surreal experience to look back and, now you could say you're a Hall of Famer, you know what I mean? And that you'll never be able to. They'll never be able to take that away from you. And, kudos to you for being able to do that. That's an awesome accomplishment. And being able to share it with your family, too. That's what I don't think a lot of these athletes are able to once they get inducted into their, colleges, Hall of Fame and stuff like that. So that's got to be, great. But, football's over. So tell everybody, what are you doing now for a career?
Yeah, so as soon as I finished playing, so I mentioned I chased that dream for 6 years. I did the tour of leagues through all the leagues that were available at that time. And 6 years in, I decided, getting back to an NFL camp probably won't happen. So I just decided, it's probably time to walk away. I had, I think I mentioned I was married. I had my first daughter. And I was a pre-med biology major in college and had thought, hey, I'm going to go to medical school and be a doctor. But I decided against that. I was 28, so I had some friends that were in the medical device field and a lot of interest in healthcare. So started looking around at pharmaceutical and medical device jobs and landed a job I should have never gotten. Honestly, I never, no sales experience, but it was with I live in Metro Atlanta now, and the company was based out of Metro Atlanta. And a friend of a friend told me, hey, you should talk to this guy. And so called the guy out of the blue and. Fortunately, they were huge football fans. It was a small company, and the guy who was the president of the company at that time, his name was Bill Peterson. Bill Peterson's dad was the head football coach at Florida State prior to Bobby Bowden. So Bill Peterson Sr. So there was a whole lot of football in their company, and so they looked at my resume and. Again, I should have never got the job, but they liked me as a person. They liked my personality. They liked my background as a quarterback and playing football. So they gave me a job, and I started in sales here in Metro Atlanta. And over the last 20 years, I've kind of worked my way up into a regional manager job, and then moved into a vice president of sales job nationally. And now I work for a company called Boston Scientific. That is a company based out of Marlborough, Massachusetts, and I've been with them for about 5 years. And I'm the area vice president for the Eastern U.S., so kind of east of the Mississippi. I'm responsible for sales for my division.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've always said, I'd rather be lucky than good, especially when it comes to jobs. I'm doing stand-up comedy 11 years, but I still work a day job too as well. And I've been in sales. Somebody knew somebody right when I graduated, just because you graduated, those student loans don't wait till you find a job. So, it was, it's kind of, they were like, well, it's Verizon, it's sales. I mean, you got a pretty good personality, you were an athlete, so you have kind of that mentality of, wanting to beat a goal and stuff like that. So, and lo and behold, I've been in sales, 11 years, just as long as I've been doing comedy. So, it's because, like you said, a friend of a friend knew this person at Verizon that was looking to hire a sales rep. And, I've sold everything except for pharmaceuticals and houses, it seems like, you work through that and, you finding the right fit. And I think I have, I sell sheds for the Amish now, which is awesome. But yeah, sales, I don't think a lot of people, it correlates to being an athlete too as well, because there's always goals you have to beat and you can always move up. And I don't think people see the correlation with that. Do you?
Yeah. No, and it's interesting. I would say we, in the medical device industry as a whole, and, I've heard a lot of people as managers now that hire people, and we are drawn to ex-athletes. I mean, there's something to be said, much like you just mentioned, with if someone was a high school athlete, but in particular a college athlete, or maybe even a professional athlete, they typically, not always, but typically have the right motivation, drive, determination, work ethic that you're looking for, right? Yeah. And so if you've got a half a personality and know how to relate to people, that usually shines to an interview. Military and ex-athletes. I don't want to say I've never hired someone that was an ex-athlete or military that didn't work out, but it is almost fail-proof because you are getting those people with the qualities, that winning spirit, that desire to compete. And again, you're competing every day against a number and against, others in the company. And there's a scoreboard up there. When you see that you're 95% to plan, and your buddy's over there 105% to plan. Those competitive juices get flowing. So as sales leaders, we try to keep that competitive nature going as well. But yeah, it's rare that we hire someone from that background that doesn't have success.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because I don't think my company knew what they were in for when they got me, because I like that inter-company competition. You know what I mean? There was another sales rep. He's always been the top dog, and they asked me, like, so what's your goal now that you started? We opened up this brand new lot. It's yours, blah, blah, blah. And what's your goal? And I went, to beat Shane. Like, that's he's take out the top dog. And we have message boards and all this, and we're always taking shots at each other, just having fun, and it's pushing each other to be better. And like you said, beating numbers. And he was like, oh, well, your numbers don't match my numbers. And it's like, well, yeah, you're a bigger lot, but I'm also 151% to my goal for the year. Where are you at for your goal?
There you go. So a little smack talk.
A little bit, a little razzling, but it's all in good fun. And my sales manager absolutely loves it. Like he's always on, because he can see the message boards and that, and he's always firing back and making it like it's a lot of fun that I don't think people really realize. You can have a lot of fun in a sales job.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
But Lance, we are running down near the end of the episode here. I do have to get this segment in. If not, the manager of the podcast will kill me. And it is the Fast Fitty 5. 5 random questions from the wonderful manager of the podcast, Johnny Fitty Falcone. And I gotta tell you, Lance, these have nothing to do with what we've been talking about for the entirety of the 30 minutes. These are kind of rapid fire, but you can explain if you have to. If you're ready.
All right. Let's go.
All right. Question number 1. What's better in a house, carpet or hardwood floors?
Hardwood floors, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, when is it better to have a Friday night wedding, during the summer months or during the winter months?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. I would say Friday night wedding during the summer months. I guess it depends on if you're in the north or the south, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to do, if you're living north of the Mason-Dixon line, there's not much you want to do on a Friday night in the winter. So in the south, though, you could get by with a winter wedding on a Friday night. I was thinking, though, if you get in the late summer in the south, football kicks off on Friday nights, and high school football down here is king. So I'd say that's a bad idea for a Friday night wedding late summer in the south.
100%. I agree with that. 100%. Number 3. Could the worst D1 football team in America beat the best D3 football team in America?
Ooh, I would say yes. On any given day, and just a quick explanation, D1 programs have 85 full scholarships, D3 typically non-scholarship, right? And that doesn't mean there aren't great players in D3 football. What that means is the depth in a D1 program is typically going to be a lot better, right? So in a given game, a D3 team, the best D3 team could probably compete, but I would say the depth of a D1 team would outlast it.
Yeah, that's accurate. For sure. Number 4, what is the most realistic and accurate of a sports movie? Any Given Sunday being like the NFL, or the Rocky movies being like pro boxing?
Gosh, that's a hard one.
And he brought the thunder with these ones. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, these are good ones.
Yeah. I would have to say, I don't know much about boxing, so I can't really comment on that. I love Rocky movies, but I'd have to say Any Given Sunday being more like the NFL, just because I'm a football guy.
Okay. Can't be mad at that. Number 5, what do you think the hardest Olympic sport to win an individual gold medal in is? Wrestling, the 100-meter dash and track, or archery?
Ooh, I'm going to go 100-meter dash. I think archery's hard. Wrestling is definitely a difficult sport, but 100-meter dash, I mean, you have to be, you're competing against 10 people on a track. And that essentially is the fastest man in the world. Wrestling, you could have a good day, a bad day. Maybe you wrestle better than you should on one day. But, I think it'd have to be the 100-meter dash.
Yeah, not mad at those, but that was the Fast 55, and I got to tell you, he brought the thunder with those questions. We've kind of, got away from the Fast 55 for a little while, and we're bringing it back because we've had a lot of roundtables and stuff like that in the show. But man, he's really testing that NFL mind there. He's getting that. But like I said, Lance, we are running down near the end of the episode here. I do give every guest this opportunity at the end. I'm going to give you about a minute. If there's anything you want to get out there, promote, whether it's just a good message or anything like that, I'm going to give you about a minute. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing I really want to promote other than, I appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun to get on a show and talk about my past and something I'm passionate about with football. And, to all your listeners out there, thanks for the opportunity to let me speak into your living room or your car or where we are today. It's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, not a problem at all. Glad to have you on. Glad to talk to you, get to dive into the mind of, Lance Funderburk. And, it was a lot of fun to sit and talk with you. I'm glad we were able to connect with good old Coach Hal Mumme to get us connected here. I'll give him another shameless plug on the show. He's been on it a couple times, so I can't help it. Love talking with Hal. A lot of fun every time, but that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.